First of all, if you don't mind, there's a personal experience. Many, maybe 60 years ago, I undertook a course in the adult education system in Melbourne in comparative religion. And this was run by an English professor by the name of Raynor C. Johnston. You can look him up on Wikipedia. He's a very prominent teacher. But 4 or 5 of us in that class recognized that he was one of these secret teachers. So after class we would quiz him about his life. And he told us that he lived in one of the hills outside of Melbourne, and that one day he answered a knock on the door, and outside was a young woman who said to him, "I am your teacher." So of course each of us wanted to meet this teacher, so we begged him to introduce us to her. But he came back to me with a message from her which said something like, "No, she is not ready. She needs more spiritual knowledge and experience." Now, I was very disappointed, but it made me even more avid for spiritual knowledge and set me on a trajectory that lasted about more than 30 years. But there's a story of a man who wanted to learn the spiritual knowledge of truth. So he set out on his quest, which took him to many places, but finally to a very large desert. But fortunate for him, he was able to find an oasis. And as it happened, in that oasis, the wind had blown a leaf from the tree of knowledge. So as he was traversing the area, he trod on this leaf which adhered to the bottom of his shoe. So, strangely enough, he began to feel very wise. And when he came to the next town and was in the coffee shops and got talking to people, it seemed that he was a fountain of wisdom and knowledge on almost anything. But he did notice that when he took off his shoes, he wasn't quite so clear and clever as he thought he was. But of course he was around about town and got quite a reputation, which arrived at the ears of the king. So the king called him to him and asked him, "Well, tell me, what is the fountain of your knowledge?" Well, the man said, "I don't really know, but I think it's in my shoes." Because when I'm wearing my shoes, I'm very wise. I have a great deal of knowledge. But when I take off my shoes, it's nothing. And the king said, "I want those shoes." So he offered him a great deal of money for his shoes. So the seeker went off with his bag of gold and became a rich man. So of course he didn't need knowledge anymore. He was rich. But of course the king, he couldn't wear a pair of dirty shoes. So his servants cleaned his shoes and washed off the leaf on the bottom. So the king didn't get any wisdom either. But then there was a student, a spiritual student, who'd been with the master for many years. And one day he went to his master and he said, "Master, I hear that there is a pundit coming to town who who is very, very knowledgeable on spiritual matters, and I'm wondering if you mind if I go to listen to him. No, go, said the master, go listen to him, bring back and tell me what it is all about. So the young man went off to listen to this pundit, and when he came back, of course, the master asked him about it, and the student waxed lyrical about this man and how clever he was. He could speak on any subject, had knowledge about anything that could be brought up and any question that was asked of him. Oh, said the master, so he knows everything about everything, and that's all. And then there's that time when a certain group of, quite knowledgeable and spiritual people, they called themselves, got together, and they'd heard about a particular man who was said to be very wise and a great lecturer on such matters. So they invited him along to give a dissertation at their group. Now the subject that he chose was the difference, if any, between knowledge and knowing. So he gave a very learned discourse on this, and afterwards there was quite a great deal of heated, you might say, debate about it. And after the session was over, the teacher, and it seems that he might have been one of those secret teachers too, he says it's very, very simple to solve this, knowing that the derivative of knowledge and knowing comes from the verb to know. He said it's very simple. You just have to learn to fill a sieve with water. Well, after the teacher left, they all talked about, say, yes, he gave a very wise discourse, and it was a very good talks that we had after, but what is he talking about? Talking about how do you fill a sieve with water? What is he trying to give us, some kind of riddle or something? So they discarded it, except for one woman who it seemed to niggle at, as these things do. So she couldn't resist it. Finally, she looked up the teacher and she went to ask him, please, won't you solve this conundrum for me? What did you mean we just have to learn to fill a sieve with water? So he went to the kitchen and he got out his sieve and he said to her, now show me how you fill this sieve. But of course every time she put a cupful of water in, it just went through the holes of the sieve. So he said, now come with me. So he led her, as it happened, he lived by the ocean. And he said, now look. And he took the sieve and he threw it far out into the ocean. And they watched it as it filled with water and sank. And of course the teacher said to the woman, what did he say to that woman?
Immerse yourself.
So it takes us to these paradoxes that have been spoken of, and the mentation that has to go on, not only to clarify what they are, but as we've recognized, they're always two sides of a coin. And so we can look at one side or the other and analyze and mentate about it. Or we can go to the center of the coin to discover what is there, where do they meet? And of course we could ask ourselves now, where do knowledge and knowing meet? But if we zero in, recognizing, okay, they come from the same verb, to know. But if we go behind that, we go into the center of the coin. So what does it mean, this metaphor, you might say? We have to learn how to fill a sieve with water. What is the significance of throwing that sieve in the ocean? What does the ocean represent for us in this?
Experience.
Experience?
Subconscious. Subconscious.
Yes?
You can't take knowledge out, you can only immerse yourself in it.
Right. So the ocean, with all paradoxes, what could the ocean mean